Good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar, which is titled Understand the Local Culture, Key Success Factor in International Business. This is organized by the Swedish-Polish Chamber of Commerce in collaboration with our fantastic member companies and even more fantastic representatives of those companies. There will be 4 presentations today for you and 1 panel discussion, and hopefully if we have enough time there will be a Q&A session. The webinar is being recorded and it will be available on YouTube with links on our website and on LinkedIn. So today we are here to talk about culture. This is something that we all belong to, we carry it with us and often take for granted. Culture is our identity, it shapes how we communicate, how we build trust, how we make decisions, and even how we define success. And at first glance, Sweden and Poland may look very, very different because of history, because of traditions, ways of doing business. But if we look a little bit closer, we can also see many similarities in values, in ambitions, and, very important, desire for meaningful cooperation. And these similarities are actually a very strong foundation. Still, what I believe, differences matter, and within our own culture, many things are obvious and expected. But once we step outside the framework, we may be noticed in another way. Sometimes it can be positive, it can be interesting, it can be intriguing, fun, but sometimes it might be a little bit negative or maybe even excluding, sometimes quietly excluding, and we would not even know why. So that is why we believe that this awareness of the culture is actually very important. Cultural differences are not automatically a problem. They might become a problem only if we ignore them. So when they are managed well, they can be a source of strength, actually. Swedish culture can meet Polish flexibility, Polish creativity can meet, the Swedish planning and predictability. And who knows, maybe together they will even produce a better outcome than each culture alone. So, saying that, I don't believe we should try to unify to the only way of working. That would basically mean losing our own identity, but instead, the opportunity lies in understanding the boundaries, recognizing what we share, and also learning on how to thrive on both similarities and differences. And that is exactly what we are going to talk about today. I hope it will inspire all of us to see the culture not as an obstacle, but as a resource in building strong business relationship between Sweden, Poland, and beyond. My name is Jacek Ziolkowski. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Swedish-Polish Chamber of Commerce and the CEO of NordPolen. Thank you very much for listening to this introduction, and I think we can begin. Our first speaker today is going to be Katarzyna Molęda, a co-founder and partner at Enterculture, also a board member of the Swedish-Polish Chamber of Commerce, and the title of the presentation is The Power of Cultural Awareness in Business. Good luck, Katarzyna.
Thank you very much, Jacek, for this introduction. Let's start with a question. What is good communication in business? When I ask these questions to business professionals from all over the world, I always get the same answer. Good communication is effective and respectful. The same answer from Germans, Mexicans, Brazilians, Poles, Swedes. One can wonder, why do we have miscommunication in business at all? Probably because effective and respectful communication means different things in different cultures. Can you recall a situation in your life when you were going to a business meeting and you were enthusiastic about a product or a project, you wanted to share your knowledge, your ideas, and you did it generously. You did your best to have a lively and fruitful discussion, but your business partners seemed not to be interested. They talked very little, they were very quiet, there were long silences. You felt that they were disengaged. Or maybe you have been in a situation when you were eager to meet your business partners and present your views and opinions, but you really couldn't do it because they didn't seem interested. They interrupted you all the time. They talked about their opinions and their views without asking you. And at the end, they were more or less having a monologue without you being able to say a word. There are the two stories I have heard from my clients, and probably you have guessed that those two stories describe exactly the same situation. The same situation, but seen from two different perspectives. Now I will share my screen to illustrate this. I hope you can see my screen now. This is exactly like on this cartoon. Same behavior, same situation, but two different perspectives. In this example that I gave, what actually played a role was the fact that depending on our personality, but to a huge extent also depending on our culture, we have a different way of taking turns in conversation. One pattern is one person speaks, and when the person stops, the other person starts talking. We call it stop-start cultures. It's a very time-sufficient method used, for example, very often in German culture, in American culture. Another is stop-pause. One person speaks, and then there is a small, very short pause. This pause, why do we have this pause? Usually to give the person chance to maybe add something, but also to show that we are listening. And this is more typical for Nordic cultures and also in formal setting, South Asian cultures. And then we have the third method. One person is speaking, and before the person has finished, the other person starts talking. Oh, I was thinking about this project. I was also thinking about this project. Usually, people do it because they are listening, they are interested, and they interrupt. And this is more often in French culture, Italian culture, even sometimes in Polish culture. But how might it be interpreted by the other side? If I'm used to these small pauses, which show respect and genuine interest in my view, I would always feel that interruptions are disruptive and rude. And if I'm used to those interruptions and actually see them as something showing that we understand each other, we are sending on the same wavelength, silences may, in my view, show the lack of engagement. But of course, taking turns, this is only one aspect of communication. There are many more aspects of communication. There are many things happening when we are communicating. One aspect is expressiveness. It's very well researched, and there is a lot to say about it, but we will stay on a basic level, how expressive we are. In some cultures, big gestures, vivid mimics, louder voices are something normal. In other cultures, gestures are very small. So small, they may not be even visible for people coming from cultures where bad language is more intense. The mimics are softer, the voices are calmer. When I showed these two graphs during one of my courses, I was approached by an Italian manager, and he told me that after he saw it, he realized why all his meetings with Swedish team felt so strange. They always started very well, but during the meeting, Swedes stopped talking. But now he realized how his enthusiastic interruptions and loud monologues might have been perceived by his Swedish team. But of course, we have to remember, we are not statistical averages. We deal in people in business life. So there are French people that never interrupt, and there are Finns that do. Here is where actually this cultural awareness comes into picture. Because it is being aware that some behaviors, some ways of collaborating are simply more familiar for people, more accepted and more expected. And being aware of it means also that we understand that our way is neither neutral nor universal, that our values, our convictions are shaped by culture, and also recognizing that other people may experience the world differently than we do. I will share another story I heard from my client. It was a company in the energy industry. French manager had meetings with a Norwegian external contractor. They were to deliver a product. And she described those meetings to me as very effective. She was always very well prepared. And she said exactly what should be adjusted, what should be changed, and it was delivered, everything she asked for. So when the product was ready after half a year and they had a summary meeting, she gave them positive recognition. And what baffled her was that she saw disbelief in their eyes. And the contractor said, "We are very surprised to hear it. We thought that you were so unhappy with our work that you will never cooperate with us again." What happened here? She saw herself as direct, as openly saying what should be changed, giving clear instructions, but they saw her as being critical, ignoring the things that have been done well. As you may guess, it's about feedback. I'm sure that all of you have experienced and noticed that how we give feedback depends on our culture. Of course, many companies have their models of giving feedback. Probably your companies have these models too. They are often very good, but somehow when they are implemented in practice, the same model looks differently depending who is using it. And if we again look at the statistics I use are taken from Professor Erin Meyer's book, Culture Map. Some cultures are more direct in giving negative feedback, while other cultures are less direct. So we talked about taking turns, expressiveness, and the negative feedback. But in communication, we also talk about being in general direct, almost literally saying what we mean, or being indirect, letting the listener read between the lines. It's about how we frame, how we describe the situation around us. Do we focus on positive or do we rather focus on negative? It also means that some people would give a lot of positive recognition, while in other cultures there is much less positive recognition in general. And disagreeing. Are we open for confrontation or are we rather avoiding confrontation? And of course, being culturally aware means that we know how we can be both different and similar, not only in communication, but actually in all social situations and human interactions. In the workplace, it's about, for example, leadership style, which one we see as a good one, how we use physical space, how we use time, What is our attitude towards rules? How we build trust? What strategies do we use? Often we are even not aware what strategies we prefer unless we reflect on it. How we approach problem solving, more intuitive, more fact-based. How we take decisions and what motivates us in our lives. We should neither overestimate nor underestimate those possible differences. Because if we overestimate those differences, we create divisions. We create this us and them thinking. But if we underestimate, it can lead to that we impose our way to other people, ignoring differences, which in turn can lead to misunderstandings and even business failure. So what does it mean in practice to be culturally aware? It means that I'm able to adapt the other person's perspective. Okay, how do they see it? How do they see this situation? I see myself as detailed and direct. Is it possible that they see me as focusing on things that are not relevant and critical? So it's about putting yourself in their shoes. What the stories you tell? Telling negative stories about our business partners create barriers. If those Poles are so chaotic, those Swedes are so slow, those Mexicans are so talky, how can we have a good collaboration with them? Maybe it's better to say that Poles are creative, Swedes are thorough, and Mexicans are friendly. Stories we tell shape the way we act. Frame positively. Adjust. Adjust as much as you want. And if you don't, as a culturally aware person, you know what the consequences might be. And of course, to be able to do all this, you have to have knowledge and be curious and learn about your own culture and other cultures. There's a fascinating research published a couple of years ago showing that only learning about cultures improved collaboration in international teams. There will be Q&A session, as Jacek said, so you are very welcome to come with your questions. You can also write your questions in the chat, and you can contact me. Here is my email address. And I'm open to learn about your thoughts about these topics and answer your questions. It was a pleasure to share all this with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Katarzyna. It was very informative, very learning. And everyone who would like to learn more, I recommend to reach out to Katarzyna. She's an expert. Okay, we are moving on, and the second presentation will be conducted actually by two speakers. It's going to be Mikael Sorensson, Managing Director at 𝐏𝐫𝐸 Sweden, and Małgorzata Zielińska, Senior Recruiter from 𝐏𝐫𝐸 Sweden. And the topic of the presentation is why success in cross-border activities requires addressing intercultural differences.
Yes, and I hope you can see our screen, right? So today we'll actually focus on recruitment, which is our daily work. We help companies in Poland and Sweden to find their next employee or consultant. And we also believe that actually recruitment matters to everyone, both to companies hiring, but also to individuals looking for jobs in either country, Poland or Sweden.
So, 𝐏𝐫𝐸 has offices in Torun, Gdansk and Wrocław in Poland, and here in Gothenburg, Sweden. And we are currently expanding into Italy, and shortly we will increase our expanding map to Spain. We work across borders every day, and we often find that understanding cultural differences is a key to success. Our company was founded in Poland 11 years ago, not with an instant success, but after a few years and hard work, 𝐏𝐫𝐽 was well established in Poland, and in recent years, 4 years in a row in fact, we won the 𝐥𝐴ZEL Business Award in Poland. We cover different sectors such as aviation, industrial manufacturing, financial, healthcare, insurance, gaming, e-commerce, amongst others. In 2023, we started our Swedish branch, and that's when my adventure here started in November. So let's quickly introduce ourselves. Dzień dobry. Hey, hello, I'm Michael Sörensson, and as said, I joined 𝐏𝐫𝐽 in November 2023. I'm from the beginning an electronic hardware engineer, and I've been in electronics since the late 80s, so I'm an old man. I started out designing and producing hardware, and over time moved into embedded word, business development and sales. In the early 2000s, I shifted gears into automotive with Siemens Video, later Continental. I worked with major OEMs across the Nordics, UK, Germany, and that's Ford, Volvo, Saab, GM. And I later joined Volvo Trucks as a consultant and requirements manager. That work took me all over the world, collaborating with stakeholders at many levels and navigating cultural barriers along the way. After that, I led consultants and project business at Alten, Tietoevry, building R&D teams, and drove innovation forward at the OEMs. And now at 𝐏𝐫𝐽, I get to bring all of that experience together. For me, technology isn't just about products, it's about people, collaboration, and building the future together. Gosia.
And myself, Gosia, I graduated from Scandinavian Studies and also Educational Sciences. And for some years, I worked on research on how these fields intersect in Sweden, Denmark, and Iceland. I've worked as a language teacher and a translator of a few Scandinavian languages, including Old Norse. And I taught university courses about intercultural education and migration. Then in 2016, after defending my PhD, I moved into the business world. I began by recruiting for the renewable energy sector in Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Finland. And then I spent nearly 3 years with a Danish pharma giant. And this year I joined 𝐏𝐫𝐽, where I now focus on recruitment in Sweden mainly, but also support hiring in Poland and Italy. And we'll now share some insights from our work and also from other 𝐏𝐫𝐽 recruiters in Poland who recruited in Sweden. And let's start with something seemingly simple, that's time. One of the first things that our recruiters mentioned was the different approach to time and speed in recruitment. And Mika, how did you experience that?
In the beginning, it was a shock, to be honest. In Sweden, hiring can be slow, very slow, more time to think, digest, more steps. In Poland, it's much faster. If you are too slow, you lose the candidate. And to bring that way of working to Sweden is very uplifting, and I see that the clients very much appreciate how fast we move on. Pushing them into be more involved and engaged from the start, not only procurement. Procurement almost are not involved at all until the end and sending the POs. So the team and the line managers together make the decisions, who's the best fit, and then invite the best candidates to interviews already after a few days. This means they get the best fit, and we are not losing our candidates to competitors.
Yeah. And actually, in Poland, it is much faster. We can make decisions within a few days, and the candidates expect that to do so. At 𝐏𝐵𝐽, we sometimes manage the whole selection process within just 2-3 days, and that includes writing the job ad, finding and selecting the candidates, doing the screening calls, recommendations. That speed really amazed me when I joined. And we do that also without sacrificing quality, because we have clear priorities, focus on the right steps, avoid multitasking, and also trust people to make the decisions. In Sweden, that part is different, because the candidates are more patient, and decisions are made together. So as Mika mentioned, together with the team, that takes time. But also candidates don't rush for feedback. And recently, in June this year, I spoke to a Swedish candidate who wanted to start work in January next year. I was surprised. That felt like really long timeline, but it was actually perfectly reasonable. He now received an offer in September. So with a 3 months notice, he will actually start in January. That's pretty realistic. There are more differences. Let's talk about salary. For example, in Poland, it's expected that the salary is shared very early, often in the job ad itself and in the first LinkedIn message. Otherwise, the candidates won't even answer you. In Sweden, that topic comes later. Sometimes we feel that the candidates are not so comfortable discussing the salary. And one conversation I remember from a Swedish candidate who said, "I don't want to earn a krona more or less than my colleagues." That was very surprising for me, and would be very surprising in Poland, where people are competing to get the best salary that they can get.
Yeah, and that's my experience as well, of course. The Swedish candidates value fairness and equality more and assume companies are transparent. In Poland, salary can be a motivator. In Sweden, it's important, but the discussion is more about the whole package and the team fit. You negotiate the terms and conditions in the end, and every often this goes quite fast. So when the candidates feel safe with the working conditions and that they will be a good fit. I can tell you that it happens not very often though, that some people are so determined to deliver what's expected that they tell you that I'm not able to be at my best here and deliver on high level, and therefore I resign. Also being straightforward and telling the client that this is not what you said I do when at interview and what I expected the assignment was about, and resign. Being transparent and truthful is the key. Trust is the key word.
Exactly. But this also comes down to how people talk about their achievements. And here there's another difference, but actually also a historical similarity between Poland and Sweden. I was born in the 80s, and back then it wasn't common in Poland to promote yourself, and you'd rather downplay your achievements. But then in the 90s, during the economic transformation, people started learning how to sell themselves, almost like in the US. And today, the candidates are used to highlighting their skills in the CV and discussing their achievements in interviews. And in Sweden, I sometimes feel like I need to pull the achievements out of the candidates. For example, they've done something for years, but then they don't put that in their CV. And during the first recruitment call, they would mention as much as what they can't do as they say what they can do. Actually, the Swedish hiring teams might prefer this humble approach over listing every possible skill. But the challenge is for us recruiters to actually get the candidates to share what they can do and why we should hire them. And here you have a glimpse of the 𝐓𝐡𝐞 country comparison tool. It shows also that there is a difference here in achievement motivation. I can also say that for Swedish candidates, they value more stability and are less eager to change jobs, while in Poland, the candidates tend to seek more opportunities to improve their careers. Poland also tends to focus more on competition, individual performance, while in Sweden, there's still this 𝐴𝐿 concept. I mean, Mika, you'll tell us a bit more about it.
Yeah, I agree. In Sweden, it's more about team success than individual success. People may underplay their skills to not stand out too much. That's something international companies often notice, and this part of the 𝐴𝐿 law. And it's not a law as such. It's more like how to behave. You're not better than your fellow colleagues, friends, all others. So don't brag about yourself. That's very deep into the Swedish soul, so to speak, or even in the Nordic souls. We've seen sorry, we've seen key contrast in decision-making speed, hierarchy, and self-promotion, but both countries, Poland and Sweden, value quality, trust, and collaboration, and this creates a strong foundation for working together. Gosia.
Yes, exactly. And there are many more topics we won't have time to discuss in depth, like, for example, unemployment, much lower in Poland, giving candidates more power, although it's growing now. Distance to power, Sweden has a flatter hierarchy also in workplaces. But this is based on Hofstede's insights, and they are somewhat historical, based on studies of managers, and they don't fully reflect the diversity within the population. And this diversity actually makes it hard to assume anything in business. For example, in Sweden, around 20% of the population is born in another country, and 15% outside the EU. In the IT sector, where we mainly work, these numbers are even higher. This creates a truly multicultural environment where you can't take anything for granted. You need to adjust, you need to listen carefully when speaking with candidates or managers. In Poland, the migration and ethnic diversity are lower, but in-group diversity is strong. Several factors shape the views on work-life balance and power distance and how it's changing. For example, generational change plays a role. Currently, younger generations prioritize work-life balance much more than older ones. Also, COVID-19 influenced expectations for remote work. Some people are now returning to offices, but many continue to work remotely, including for foreign companies. And there's a growing number of people who have experience from other companies, other working cultures. It could be remote work for foreign companies. It could be also returning migrants. At the moment, there are more people returning to Poland than going elsewhere. And that brings international experience back to the Polish market. Then there's also the growth of shared service centers, where people work for companies with foreign working culture, could be Scandinavian ones as well. And this shapes how people view work relationships or how they communicate with each other. Now, actually, Poland is one of top global outsourcing locations and the leader in Europe in outsourcing. And here we can say that the cultural proximity to the Western business practices, including the Scandinavian ones, is the key reasons. And this shows that alongside the differences, the similarities between Poland and Sweden, they enable the cross-border business and recruitment as well.
So, to wrap things up here in the end, our presentation explored why success in cross-border recruitment depends on understanding intercultural differences. We have highlighted how expectations around time, communication, decision-making, and self-presentation can differ, not only between countries like Poland and Sweden, but also within them. Because even in countries that seem culturally close, the small, often invisible differences can shape the entire recruitment process. Understanding these differences matters, but just as important is knowing when to set cultural models aside and really listen to the person you're speaking with. Success in recruitment depends on your ability to notice what's actually happening in the room and on the screen. So, cultural dimensions, generation shifts, and individual experiences all play a role. And this means we can't rely on assumptions or stereotypes. Whether you're talking to a candidate or a hiring manager, it's essential to stay curious, ask questions, and adjust your approach to the person in front of you. And of course, as 𝐏𝐫𝐶, we're here to help. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We need to wrap up. Thank you, Małgorzata. Thank you, Mikael. As you can see, culture is dynamic. It changes. So we also need to adapt not only to the data from what we can find in books about the history of culture, but we need to also adapt to what is happening right now, and it's very dynamic. Let's move on to the next part. The next presentation is going to be by Lucyna Bacalon, PhD in Management Sciences and CEO and leadership coach at Graphology Solutions Group. And the presentation is going to be about Swedish and Polish leadership styles in business context.
Thank you very much. As you have presented, my name is Lucyna Bacalan, and I am a doctor in social sciences in discipline of management. Apart from it, I am the founder and director of Graphology Solutions Group, which provides leadership development programs, leadership coaching, leadership competences audit, and supports organizations in change management processes. Moreover, I'm the university lecturer in leadership development, value management, value of enterprises, creative and innovating thinking, and other subjects. And today I have a great pleasure to present to you the topic of Swedish and Polish leadership style in a business context. We are going to cover concept of leadership style. We are going to have a look at it from 𝐓𝐡𝐞 dimensions, which has already been mentioned here today, but from candidate perspective. I will have a look at it from the leadership perspective. I will complement it with Trompenaar's dimensions, which are going to compare Swedish and Polish leadership styles. I would like to say a few words about the 𝐓𝐴𝐽 leadership, which is a Swedish leadership style, and 5 traits which characterize it. And perhaps we could consider why Swedish firms favor consensus over top-down decision processes. And then we will summarize it, looking at the aspect of Swedish and Polish leadership styles. And at the end, I would propose to reflect how can we integrate Polish and Swedish leadership style in a business context to run a successful business. Leadership style can be defined in a very different way in the scientific literature. I would like to propose to you the definition of Daniel Goleman, who defines a leadership style as a concept which refers to how leaders adapt the approach to motivate, to manage the team effectively, of course, in achieving organizational goals. Today's leaders are working in economy 5.0, which is very demanding economy with a generative artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, combined with human factor. We are acting in the reality which is called VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. This is what characterizes our reality today in business context as well. Another acronym which has been coined in the science is a BNNI, which refers to brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible reality. In all this, leaders need to not only find a way how to realize goals of the organization, but also how to help the employees and themselves to feel good and comfortable. So this is a pretty challenging task. And let's have a look at the 𝐓𝐡𝐞 dimensions. This is a well-known framework which describes how cultural values can influence behavior within organizations and societies. And here I would like to have a look at the dimension of power distance, in which Polish workplaces tend to have more hierarchical structures, and Polish organizations score 68 on scale 100, which implicates that there is rather hierarchical structures in Poland. Whereas in Sweden, the organizations favor flatter structures, decentralized decision-making processes, and pretty more consultative, inclusive communication style. In the power distance, Sweden scores 31. When it comes to uncertainty avoidance, Poland exhibits a very high level of need for certainty and stability. On a scale of 100, Poland scores 93 in this dimension, whereas in Sweden, change can be embraced more easily, encouraging innovation and rather flexible team structures. And Sweden scores here 29 on scale 100. Masculinity versus femininity. This is the next dimension which I would like to pay attention to in presentation. Sweden scores low on masculinity level, and this may implicate organizations that value modesty, caring, quality of life, cooperation. Whereas in Poland, which scores on masculinity level 64, we prefer values like achievement, assertiveness, ambition, and competitiveness. Decision-making style is different. In Sweden, much more inclusive, consensus building based on dialogue, which implicates longer decision-making processes. And Polish leadership tends to be more directive and quicker in decision-making processes as well. Communications, which often use, according to the research, more indirect, polite communication. Poles are expecting explicit instructions and clear expectations. I have done also comparison of Polish and Swedish organization leadership styles based on Trompena's dimension framework, which is also very much respected framework, which helps to understand cultural challenges in business leadership negotiation and management contexts. And the results appear to be very similar to the Hofstede dimensions framework, because Trompenas stresses the consensus-driven and rather non-hierarchical structure in Swedish organizational culture, rather achieving group agreement and tendency to maintain harmony in organizations, which can be very much characterized by the logom way. From Swedish language. Decision-making processes are slower, of course, because much more members are included in decision process, but once decision is made, there is a strong commitment from the team to go for it. From Trompena's point of view, Polish leadership style is more hierarchical, with substantial power distance, rather team-oriented, and while maintaining clear leadership authority. So, to summarize, Swedish leadership emphasizes consensus, equality, and collective inclusive decision-making processes. Polish leadership style is more hierarchical and authority-based. Perhaps it could be interesting to have a look at the logom leadership style and 5 key traits of logom leadership styles, which include trust as a fundamental trait, especially as rapid developments require reliance on the environment. Curiosity, which supports entrepreneurial creativity and be openness to outside influences. Inclusion is a consensus-driven and decentralized decision-making directed, of course, for efficiency. Resilience, ability to bouncing back, to be not only neutral, but also very creative and going forward, including authenticity, ability to listen, ability to settle goals. Openness, encouraging multicultural influences and constant learning. I have also noticed the similarity between Hofstede, Trompenas, and logom leadership style with the concept of clan culture by Cameron and Quinn, which puts focus on forming clan within the organization, where the leaders are supporting employees, seeking consensus in decision-making, and are very flexible. Why Swedish firms favor consensus over top decision processes? Due to several reasons, which include high interpersonal and social trust, which is strongly embedded in a cultural foundation in Sweden. Inclusiveness and respect for all perspectives, which can mean that all employees are welcome to propose their solutions, to present their point of views, and they will listen. regardless of their position in hierarchy. Sustainable decisions and effective implementation, because when securing an agreement through dialogue, there is a less resistance when implementing changes within the organization. Then balancing individual needs and collective interests. And here we have this lagom, Swedish word, which means moderation and balance, and long-term view, because consensus leads to decisions that hold, decisions that are durable, because they enjoy broader participation and support from employees. Here we have a summary for those who would like to have it in one place. When we have a look at the aspect of Polish and Swedish leadership styles from several aspects like organizational structure with flat low hierarchy in Sweden and more hierarchical and centralized decision-making in Poland. Decision-making aspect, which is more consensus-driven and inclusive in Sweden, and perhaps more autocratic and directive and top-down in Poland. Leadership approach, which can be compared to leadership to coaching style. A leader can work in Sweden as a facilitator more than boss, and more directive, authoritative leadership style in Poland. Leadership approach with clear lines of command. Communication style, which is much more open in Sweden, more formal and respects hierarchy in Poland. Employees' relations support in Sweden, collaboration, trust. In Poland, we respect authority, but personal relationships are very important. Approach to change is cautious in Sweden, but collaborative with gradual implementation. Faster, whereas in Poland, we observe faster implementation of changes, which can sometimes be met with resistance. Work-life balance is important in both cultures, organizational cultures, perhaps a little bit higher valued in Sweden and increasingly recognized in Poland. Innovation culture encourages innovation through collaboration and growing focus on innovation in Poland as well. We can ask ourselves a question: what can we do to integrate Polish and Swedish leadership styles in business context to be successful in business? We can emphasize consensus and collaboration and shift from a directive top-down style, leadership style, typical for Poland. We can flatten hierarchies to create them more horizontal than vertical, which can reduce formal barriers by encouraging open communication across all levels in the organizations. We can practice active listening and empathy. We can stress the value of promotion of work-life balance. We can encourage autonomy and responsibility, because Swedish employees are typically expecting autonomy in their roles. We can communicate transparently and politely. And and what is important, we can be more patient with decision-making pace, because we understand that consensus-based decision processes can take time. And with this conclusion, I would like to thank you very much for your attention. I am looking forward to discussing with you Swedish and Polish leadership styles, similarities and the differences. And thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucyna. Thank you for this scientific approach in a snapshot. It was also very, very informative and I think very helpful for all our participants and listeners. All right, let's move on. So right now, the fourth presentation, the last but not least, Mikael Wellsted, founder and CEO of Inonom. And the topic of the presentation will be 5 must-dos for winning tech business in the Nordics.
Thank you, Jacek. So 25 years ago, I was really happy. I was a young and energetic engineer that just got the assignment to help a large European vendor grow in the Nordic area. This company had everything. They had great modern technology, they had good pricing and had a fantastic big factory so they can deliver, big delivery machine. And I was so happy because I was going to lead this assignment, and I could just see myself, I was going to get rich, famous, and just so successful. 2 years down the line, situation was a bit different. I was not so successful. I was not rich, and I was not that successful because I didn't sell anything. We had a lot of people involved. We had big, great products and everything, but it was really just hard work, and I couldn't understand why. So I needed to take a step back to really understand what was wrong. Why didn't it really work? And I talked to a lot of smart people, and the conclusion I made, it was not about great technology. It wasn't about good pricing. It wasn't about having a big factory and delivering great, fast things to the market. It was about people. It's about relationship. People buy from people they know, like, and trust. So I adopted to that. I started to invest more on the relationship level to really build trustful relationship and really trying to forget about the products and technology, focus on the customers, focus on the people, building the right communication as we'd heard in previous talks. That made a big, big difference for me. One of the purchase orders I got in the third year was for $180 million. So it did work actually in practice. Now I'll try to share my presentation, and welcome to this presentation where I've summarized really what I believe are the 5 most things that you need to do in order to win tech business in the Nordics. And during the last 3 years, I had the opportunity to work with a number of tech companies as business consultants, as business coach, where I'm helping them really to leverage up the sales and growing on new markets. And quite often, the most common thing that they all ask me is that, okay, please give me the magic method. Please give me the magic tool. I'm sorry, but there is not just one magic tool. It's not one magic method. It is a mix of everything, and the magic mix is how you put it together. That's how you're going to succeed. Think about it that if you go into a restaurant, you're going to have your favorite dish. What makes it so special? Well, it's going to be the same ingredients for every restaurant, but the difference is how you put them together. The difference is how you in the order how you work it, and that's the magic recipe that you need to find out. And sometimes that's quick when I'm working with different clients. Sometimes that takes a little bit longer thing. But in order, the most important mixture is really about the market, that really to understand the market. It's not about your product or services, it's more about how they fit into the market. So, and that being said, let's go into the different 5 things that are important. And we've heard them also in previous speakers. One thing that is very important is, of course, to understand the decision process. And that is different. We heard that as well in the Nordics. It's much more consensus-based. It's not as quick as it is in other cases. When I'm working with companies in other countries, in Germany, for example, UK, Italy, and so on, quite often, if you want to sell technical stuff, software development or tech product or SaaS products, you can go to one person because the boss is quite often technically educated. They know ins and outs about the technology. You can talk to them about the technology and they can take the decision. In the Nordics, it's not often that case. Quite often you will find that leaders and the CEOs and so on in many Nordic organizations are not that well technically educated. They are there more from a political point of view. They are more of a human leadership and so on. So, when you're approaching them with technical things, they wouldn't know about it. So how does it really work? Well, quite often, they of course will be part of the decision committee, but what do? They trust their people. They will trust the decision committee. And it's not one person, it's several different persons that you need to talk to. And this is very often a frustration when you come from foreign companies and want to sell into the Nordic. It could be the other way around. When Nordic companies going outside, there's also frustration because they don't understand that they need to reach to the top to make the decisions. So this is something very, very important to notice. Another thing that is very common is if you would walk into a Swedish or Norwegian or a Nordic university, you'll find a lot of small companies, startups sitting there working. They are working very close together with the researchers from the university. And you will also see that they're also having a lot of support from the Swedish government. And you will also see that they are working together with each other, even if they are competing, just to make them stronger. And that's not just smaller companies. And I think that is based in the culture. And we have heard it before, why it's like that. And a lot of Swedish companies are used to work together. Sometimes you work together with your competitors. Sometimes you are competitors and you don't work together. But when you are entering this market and you're going to sell on the Swedish market, you also need to have that attitude of that, yes, I'm ready to work together with you. Let's win together. We are one team. We work together. That is very important. And when, for example, you're going to select people that a team, or if you're going to recruit someone in the Swedish market, quite often it's very important that they fit into the team. And that sometimes that might be more important even than the former criteria. So working together, creating partnerships, that attitude and that way of working is very, very important here. And when you're working together, of course you can't write everything down in a legal piece of paper. For example, quite often I make business with UK, and if I make business with UK companies and they give me a proposal for an agreement, it's like this thick, it's huge, a lot, and they want to write everything in that document. That's not a part, at least not for the Swedish law. The contract could be tiny, just a few pages. We don't need more. Because first of all, in the law, it's regulated more by intentions. And secondly, we trust each other. Quite often I make business with a lot of Swedish companies without having any contract or anything in place. We trust each other, and that works. The problem comes in when I'm going to make business with someone that doesn't have this attitude. I was trying to purchase some software development just 2 weeks ago. And, I liked the supplier. They had a good price and everything, but, they were just so complicated. They want to regulate everything and this and but this and that and, And I said in the end, no, I don't want to work with you because this is just too complicated. Can't we just start the work and then we'll work together to finalize this? I can't write a full requirement specification because then it's going to take too long time. So no, let's leave it like that. And we also see that so having that attitude, and I think a lot of the companies that I've been working with trying to get into the Nordic market, they spend far too much time on the product and services and too less time on building this trustful relationship. There are a number of good ways of doing that. What you need to do, you need to meet people, you need to talk to people, and you need to show them that they can trust you, that you will deliver. A fourth thing is this thing about the compliance. And working with tech companies, a lot of companies are doing software development and so on. And they ask me all the time, why do I really need to be compliant with, for example, environmental policies? Because there's a number of things that, okay, we have the law, what is written in the law, the GDPR, the AI Act from Europe and so on. Those are basic, those things we need to do. But then there's things on top that, it's not compulsory, it's not written in the law. So when they ask me, why do we really need to have the environmental compliance? Because we are a software company, it doesn't make sense for us. Well, you can think about that. On the other hand, a lot of the Nordic companies are not privately owned. They are owned by shareholders. quite often institutions, this institution has a number of requirements and rules, for example, about our environmental policies. And quite often it says that they could not buy and they're not allowed to buy things from companies that are not comply with environmental policies, or there could be other type of compliances as well. So they disqualify themselves and I don't understand why. But that's just how it is. And I think this is a really low-hanging fruit, to spend more time on compliance and understand what you need to be compliant into selling into health tech, into green tech, into municipalities and so on. And the fifth thing, I think in general, a lot of the Nordic companies are not so big risk takers. We heard it before, they take slowly decisions. It's a lot about to take a decision. So you need to align the whole team. You need everybody to agree. And this is the consensus. And that could be very frustrating, even for myself, being a Swede, everybody should agree. We should chit-chat about this forever. Can't we just get going sometimes? But that's how it is now. And as being a supplier from abroad, how can you help them? How can you reduce the risk so they all feel safe? That everybody can agree. Can you help them agree? Well, try to see what you can do to reduce risks. It's not about reducing the price. It's not about reducing, delivery time and so on, but rather reducing the risks. That's also something that I can see all the time, that companies pay so much more, sometimes 5-6 times more than they have to do, just to keep the risks low. And I think that is specific for the Nordics. I think in Europe in general, people are much more going faster and they take more risks. So, yeah. To summarize, you need to be really on top of the decision process, really to understand that this is a consensus market, and help your customers to take the decisions, help them align. You need to understand that companies are used to work together, and you also need to be prepared to work together. And trust is really one of the hardcore currencies. If you have trust, then it's going to be easy to win new business. If you don't have trust, you need to work on that. Compliance is very important, and a lot of companies will not compromise with that, because their owners have told them that they have to comply with that. Doesn't matter what the price is, they will not compromise with it. And the fifth thing is really about reduce the risk. Help the customers to see that you are trustful, reducing the risks. What we're talking about now is not technology. It's not about products, services or prices. It is really about how we make business. It's about the culture, about building trustful relationships. I have a final question for you. Do you want to win more, succeed more, and scale better? Well, I'm there. I'm ready to help you. And please reach out if you want to talk to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mikael. Thank you for this practical presentation based on your experience. I've heard a lot of good opinions about your support to many companies that actually wanted to enter the Swedish market. So thank you for sharing that. It's very useful. Okay, so we have gone through the presentation phase of our webinar, and now we are moving on to the panel discussion. So what we are going to do is I'm going to present all the panelists very briefly with the name and from which company they come from, and then I will ask all the panelists to also say a few words about themselves before we start the discussion. All right, so the first panelist is going to be Bartosz Pastuszka, founder and CEO from Navi Risk.
Good afternoon to all. My name is Bartosz Pastuszka. I'm from security and risk management industry. And I built my cultural experience when I, from the long time, built a strategical partnership with Swedish company called 𝐔𝐽. And after that, I also negotiate and sell my company to the world leading company in the security industry from Sweden, Securitas. And I want to share my cultural experience in the dark or shadow side of the business.
All right, thank you very much, Bartosz. The next panelist is going to be Sofia Albrecht, Associate Partner at EY.
Hi, my name is Sofia, and I'm working with the accounting compliance reporting team in EY, which means that we are working on the the global clients compliant in Sweden, and we also have the same team in all other countries. So I mainly work cross over the Swedish line, I would say. And previously, I've also been working as a accountant or auditor, and a group accounting and a CFO for both small and big entities on the stock market and also entrepreneurs companies that also have big international staffs in the organizations.
All right, thank you, Sofia, and thanks for joining us today. Next, we have Alexandra Eriksen, founder and owner of the company called the Norway.
Thank you, Jacek. Thank you. Alexandra Eriksen, I've been living in Norway for 30 years, and I have more than 20 years of experience with building bridges between Norwegian and Polish business. And perfect example talking about culture differences to describe you, present you my person is when I was 28 years old, I started my first job in Norway. In a youth institution working every third weekend. And after a few months, my dear colleagues asked me, Alexandra, could you please don't work so much on Sundays mornings? We really appreciate your Polish energy, but you just destroy the whole tradition for us, because Sunday mornings are for relaxing, drinking coffee and reading newspapers. So, of course, I thought that Sundays was perfect days to work double because we get almost double paid. But I accepted, told to myself, be a little bit less Polish, and I started my Sunday mornings with drinking tea and reading newspapers.
All right. So the first meeting of the work-life balance approach for you.
Yeah,
first experience.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. And the next panelist is going to be Natalia 𝐓𝐡𝐞 tax and payroll specialist.
Hello, and thank you very much for having me here today. It's really a great pleasure to take part in that event among such a great speakers. My name is Natalia 𝐓𝐡𝐞, and I'm a Polish economist. I've been living in Sweden for more than 10 years now. I hold my master's degree in public sector economy, but except for short but very pleasurable working for private sector for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I decided to develop my professional path in the private sector. And since 2017, I've been working for Volvo Group in the financial control and accounting department, and I'm dealing with taxes. All type of taxes, actually, from the VAT, income tax, and recently employer contributions. It's not the most exciting field, but it's crucial. And it can be very creative if you are brave enough. I'm not. But as an expat and a wife of a foreigner as well, I'm dealing with the cultural differences, cracks, challenges, name it as you want, on a daily basis, both at work and at home, and it's too much sometimes.
Wow.
I could share a lot of personal experiences connected just with the cultural mismatch, if we can say so, but I will try to focus on the professional experiences during that panel, and I hope it will be helpful.
All right. Thank you, Natalia. Looking forward to it. All right, the next panelist is going to be Małgorzata Musińska-Kubis. And all right, you have a long description, so...
Yeah, but I will try to be short. Yeah, so nice to be here, of course. Małgorzata Musińska-Kubis. I used to live in Sweden for almost 7 years, and I know Sweden from many dimensions, diplomacy, business, and also, which is really crucial, and you can really be taught a lot about Sweden from kindergarten and school, relationships, because my son used to attend Swedish kindergarten and school. Now I'm placed in Warsaw. I'm global manager, category manager, responsible for procurement and purchasing, logistics and transport to 𝐏𝐿 Group, which is one of the biggest chemical producer in Europe. And that would be all. I'm also the intercultural trainer, so I'm a little bit also from those theoretical point of view into intercultural differences. But as Natalia mentioned, I have so many examples from real life. And I would be really pleased to share with you today.
All right, looking forward to that as well. The next panelist is going to be Katarzyna Sarba, expert on B2B and marketing and go-to-market strategies at 𝐓𝐡𝐞.
Hello, everyone. First of all, many thanks for hosting me on today's event. Yes, some of them may know me from my LinkedIn as a marketer and consultant that supports to start your business in Poland. I help foreign companies to set the businesses in Poland and navigate a little bit this cultural differences, drawing from my professional experience. Back then, I successfully launched Nordic rooted company into Polish market in the sense of the communication and marketing part. Due to my activities, they successfully introduced their very specific product to quite demanding audience like civil engineering. Jacek encouraged us to share an anecdote related to cultural clashes or experiencing some cultural differences. And I remember from the time when I joined the team, it was a very international team, but the CEO of the company was Finnish. And I remember myself once preparing, talking about the marketing strategy, and I was highlighting something, repeating myself. At some point, he interrupted me, saying very shortly, "But you've already told us this 3 times." And I was I found it quite rude that he said this in such a short, brutal way, but and I didn't comment on that. But then, continuing working, especially with Swedes or Finns, I understood they are very precise, and there is no need to repeat yourself to highlight that something is important. You work with professionals and intelligent people. You don't have to do that. And yet Natalia 𝐏𝐿𝐴, when she was presenting herself, she actually paid my attention to something that I also personally am an expat in Italy, working remotely, and I experienced a lot of this culture differences on a daily basis. But I disconnected with this from my professional field. But yes, so I really connect. I really experience a lot of cultural differences on a professional field as well as a private one.
All right, thank you, Katarzyna. And the next panelist is going to be Wiktoria Ręcok, founder and the CEO of 𝐓𝐡𝐞.
Yes. Thank you for having me here. I think this is very important discussion we're having here, since I believe very much in the cooperation between Sweden and Poland. I think it's very economically important in these times. I'm the CEO of 𝐓𝐡𝐞, and 𝐓𝐡𝐞, we specialize in helping international companies to enter and grow in the Swedish and Nordic markets as well. So our mission is to connect companies from abroad with the right decision makers and shorten the time to market when you want to expand. or enter the market. So we are an experienced Swedish sales team with sales representatives, marketers, and management consultants, everything you need when you enter a new market. So our team are prior CEOs, entrepreneurs, sales managers, engineers, and senior expertise. So we have the following key areas in our services: appointment setting with C-level executives, sales management, where we act as a cultural bridge between. So we have local sales representatives representing you in Sweden as if they came from your company, and we're helping you driving and the deals forward, supporting you together with you on the Swedish market, so you don't fall into the usual cultural falling pits. And also we have a marketing team that helps you with fairs, events, these kind of things, and also localize your value proposition to fit the Swedish market or the Nordic market. So with 𝐏𝐿𝐵, when you start working with us, you will start to see your first potential customers within just a few weeks, a couple of weeks. And so in short, so we are committed in creating real business opportunities and being the cultural bridge for you.
All right, thank you very much. So we'll be looking forward to hearing about your experience and insights. Okay, guys, so this is going to be a discussion, and hopefully you will share your real-life cases. So when I came here to Sweden in 2018, we were not thinking that much of a culture at that moment. We were focusing on, starting a company, doing a business, presenting an offer, finding an office, and building a team, and then we started doing things as we normally would do in Poland, right? So it was not something that we thought about. And then we realized that maybe not everything works as it was back home. And then we started thinking, okay, so there are some differences. And we focused on the differences. And only after some time, we realized that we should probably also focus on some similarities and, build on both, understanding the differences and the similarities. And I wonder about your experience and also maybe some examples of your real life cases when you had this cultural clash and how you built based on the differences and the similarities.
Yeah, so maybe I can begin if you don't.
Thank you.
I usually say that, from Gdynia, it is closer to Karlskrona than from Gdynia to Warszawa. So this is always the sentence that really makes us closer. The interesting thing is that even though we are so close and we are neighbors, we have really, let's say, it's of course a kind of a shortage that we are very different. We have really different mindset. And for me, as the person who lived for a couple of years in Sweden, it's really crucial to know it. And what is also similar for us, because I really wanted to stress this out, is the nature. We all love nature, and also when I go to meet from the business perspective Swedish people, I usually would recommend, as Mikael mentioned, the list. What are our similarities? And for sure, nature. This is something that is really, really impactful in the conversation, and also. I would suggest, this is also interesting to have a list of topics, even in the business discussion, not to touch. I don't know if I know that there are many people from different nationalities here. So you can believe that we Polish people love to talk about politics. Everybody loves talking about politics, families, business. And I know, as far as I know, Swedish people rather have politics on the list of the topics not to touch, like religion. So I would really recommend, and I know from my business environment, we have talks, discussions during the days, negotiations, but usually after we have some informal meetings. So during the informal meetings, we can have some discussions. So I would recommend to avoid, politics topics. So this is really, crucial. Maybe you will comment on this also. And also what really this was a story, at a certain point of time, Swedish companies, when they opened branches in Poland, for example, they sent their managers, to open the branches and to be the managers, the bosses. And there were many, I would say hundreds of situations like this, that Polish employers from the factories, they were shocked because, for sure the distance between them, but also the managers, they really wanted from the employers to have some solutions, ideas. And Polish employers, they really wanted from Swedish bosses, managers, give us the solution, give us the, how to do it. And it was really a serious clash. Because, Polish employers, they claim in the informal meetings, those managers, they don't know how to do it, They have no knowledge. So this, as far as I know now, many Swedish companies, they also try to hire some Polish managers, even though it can sound quite funny, but this was a really important and really, cultural clash, which I think, should be mentioned here also. So, So this was like, maybe I will give the floor to other people, but, I have such a long list. And it's very nice, thank you, Jacek and Thierry, that we meet here and discuss it, also on the informal basis, because it's really crucial to meet and discuss it. So,
Yeah. I have a couple of ideas here. I have been working with Poland a little bit in the 90s. I was at Volvo. We were trying to purchase things from Poland. And at that time, I found another culture in Poland. I think a lot has happened since then. It was much harder to collaborate. You were closer to the red politics and so on. And we have more business-oriented way of doing things. But now, when I started to work with Poland again, just a few years ago, and I find that Poland has done a huge journey in the business cultural. The way of doing business, the cultural way of doing business. And I'm very surprised, very positively surprised. We work with a few Polish companies. And when you talk about similarities, Jacek, I found that both countries are very structured. We value structure. That's at least my perspective from the few Polish companies I work with. And very direct and honest communication. So it's easy to move forward. And I think that is different from many other parts of the world. So in that sense, I can see that there is a geographic proximity. And also very task-oriented and cooperative within the teams. We have been talking a lot about consensus and so on, but I haven't found any difficulties in working with teams and exchanging ways of going forward. So I think it has been very, very smooth to work with Polish companies, surprisingly.
I think Mika mentioned in his presentation how important for the Swedish business is compliant and risk mitigating. And this is completely different in Poland, because in Poland, when we get out from the communism system in the 90s, we can say, extremely high corruption, organized crime. We learn everything by ourselves. So this is why we like shortcuts. So compliance needs a patient, needs to be precise, and still Polish business like, if you say shortcuts, is not prepared for the compliant way of this Sweden. But when we discuss about, for example, corruption aspect, where Sweden built a zero tolerance system for the corruption, Poland, when they get to the European Union, make a huge progress, to build a very also high ethical aspect of the business. But still, we look on this, field of compliant risk mitigation completely different than the Swedish business. But where we see the synergy for the future, still post-Soviet countries like Ukraine is extremely high level of the corruption and differences of the culture of the business, but still is a huge opportunities. So when we discuss on the, we can say, background of the entrepreneurs in the Sweden and the Poland, that where we can build a huge synergy is resilient of the unethical behavior and corruption from Sweden. And our experience when we are in a short time, we built a system which are trying to face, you can say, this dark side of the business as a corruption and ethical behavior. And this is, in my opinion, the huge platform when the Polish entrepreneurs, Swedish entrepreneurs, can join, we can say, with our cultural differences and know each other to build a perfect platform, for example, developing our businesses together in Ukraine, maybe in Russia or other post-Soviet countries.
Yeah, this one is a very good point, actually, and I like a lot hearing about that. I've not been working in Poland since the last 10 years, but I think I agree with you that there are a lot of similarities between Sweden and Poland, and we can build on that will to play more clearly, not to be shady, because I've heard a lot of opinions about Polish people that we try to be streetwise, that we try to play shady. So it's very good that you also see the difference and the development in that way. I think that what might be needed is leaving this very authoritarian way of making decisions in Poland. I'm not sure if it's still a case, but when I used to work both in private and public sector, the decisions has been made on the top, and there is always a risk for the corruption if you don't know how the decision process is going. Here in Sweden, it's very open, it's very democratic, it's decentralized. Everyone has a right, but also everyone in the team is expected to give their opinion about the decision process. It might be slower, it might be frustrating sometimes, but it's more clear, and I think we are still missing that in Poland. I cannot imagine going contrary to my boss when I was working in Poland and say, no, I disagree. I guess I would have to pack all my things before I made such a comment on the meeting. So I think that maybe this one is a field for improvement.
It has changed, Natalia.
Good.
It has changed, but it has changed, but still it depends on the sector. And of course, there are still some companies where you cannot find this. And also, the thing that I really miss from Sweden is the transparency. We still have to learn a lot in Poland. This is a huge question because, for me, when I came back after 7 years, it was like, informing about everything, each side, because I always wanted to be on the same side with all my colleagues. And then, it's... And also, I repeat to my colleagues who cooperate with Swedish people, not only, but also Dutch are quite similar because we also in my company cooperate with the Dutch. It's that you should inform your party in Sweden about everything, about the process. And, our will in Poland is like, but what shall I talk? What am I supposed to write? That I have done nothing? Yes, please say that you have not done anything. This is crucial to stay informed on the same side. So this is really crucial.
Maybe we are missing on the feedback side, that we try to make it, that we try to be more active, but we are not informing enough. Maybe that's the hint as well.
Guys, I think it's very different depending also on the type of the organization, size of the organization. There are plenty of companies that are have offices in Poland, but they are actually global companies and they bring their own culture. So it's not only about the culture within the country, but it's also the culture within organization. I know, Sophia, you work in a big organization.
Yes, correct.
I wonder what's your opinion on this.
Yeah, I think that's important to involve all the members in the team, of course, in different kind of questions, because they come with the input, how the big handle, what is good ideas. And when we come up to decisions and to the end, it will be easier to kind of get this agreed through the organization to get this happened. But this also has to be that when we have the discussion with all other teams, it can be tough from the Swedish side to get the members from other team, even if the manager from that team have taken the decisions, to get the team members then collaborate with Swedish team members, for instance, because the other ones doesn't really know what it's all about and they not have the agreement or they don't really understand. So I I'd like to work that way. Then we are to collaborate with all the team members. Of course, not all on every step, but I mean, or every project. But it depends on what for knowledge do they have, and then in the end, it's easier to take a decision. Yes, they will take more time, of course, but I think in the end, it will be quicker to put this through the organization.
All right, thank you. And Alexander, how is it in Norway?
Yeah, I was listening. I'm quite fascinating, Natalia. You just read my mind, because I was thinking absolutely about very similar differences. And Norway, it's of course not so far from Sweden, and differences are very clear at work. We've been talking about processes and making decisions, and my experience working with Polish customers is that Polish people expect the boss to make decisions, and not only make decisions, but most of all to take responsibilities for the decisions. And Norwegians, on the other hand, they expect that everyone will have a chance to give their opinion before a decision is made. And of course, I think that Polish people are more formal. If you are Polish speaking, so you know what I mean when I told you about my experience, that I was often called Prezes Alexandra or Mecenas Eriksen. I'm not even a lawyer, but I was called by our customers. So in Norway, it's completely different. It's normal that everyone uses their first names.
I have one question which actually bugged me for quite some time. What is the acceptance for errors, mistakes, failures in the Nordic organizations? Because I think that often in Poland this might be one of the reasons why we don't want to share that much of something we did wrong or was not up to the standard, because then it's usually followed by negative feedback, and sometimes even it's risky. So I wonder if there is higher acceptance for making errors in the Nordics than in Poland.
I can answer a little bit on that. Relating to Mikael before, there is very little risk taking. You don't want problems in the end. You need rock solid functional things, and that's why the decision making is longer, because you really don't want to spend your time and energy and money on solutions that doesn't work or gives you problems. So there is a very little patience with that when you make a decision and things that's why it's so important to make it right. But once somebody screws up, something happened, it's an accident. People are friendly and understanding, but really don't like problems and the risk it brings. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Katarzyna, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, it's thank you for that question, because it's very, very good question, and I can share some experience from the former company and how Poles and how I would say generally Nordics approach to managing the risk. In Poland, it's also like historically rooted that there's no allowance for making mistakes. You don't talk a lot about the mistakes. Is a considered as a failure, and there is nothing to share about. Plus, like reporting a failure or potentially risk situation in the work environment, still in many industries or in some generations is considered as a kind of collaboration. It has a bad connotation. Like you should not tell that your colleague is doing something wrongly. And I'm referring to the specific case in the former company, because we were operating in construction industry, potentially quite risky environment when you have to really manage the risk. And that was actually a culture clash, because we couldn't convince our technicians to report potentially risk situation, like, I don't know, spilled oil or lacking a tool on a site, etc. Or when noticing the colleague is not wearing, I don't know, safety glasses or safety boots or helmet. This situation were considered, they didn't report first because they didn't even consider this as a risk, and the second, it was badly perceived. So we figure out it was like a gamification of the situation. So we launched a program that for every report there was like a card where the report the potentially risk situation. They fill it, and for each card filled, we were donating to a charity. So we try to shift this mental approach that it's nothing inappropriate to report that, because it's about our safety and of course safety of other people on the construction site. So
yeah, but also I can add maybe from IT sector, because this was also a kind of a real situation. Swedish people, they usually, it comes to negative feedback. I assume that for Swedish people, it's not so easy to give negative feedback, face to face. And I remember some situations that my Polish colleagues, they really needed some feedback from Swedish colleagues, and there was a kind of a cultural clash, because Swedish colleagues, they thought something different, but they had difficulties in communicating directly some negative feedback. And then they solved it by preparing kind of a form written, and then it was easier for Swedish IT people just to give the negative feedback in a form and send it to Polish colleagues or something like this. So this is a kind of a also real example, and maybe Jacek will comment on this because it comes from IT sector. But this was a kind of a real issue about the difficulty of giving negative feedback directly, face to face.
Yeah. Thank you, Małgorzata. I would actually, because I had different situations in my history. Once we had a big team that didn't want to share the information that they are actually performing slower than planned. And for many months, they were, covering it and were trying to catch up just in order to, at the end, show that they finally, made it. But the right solution would be just to say at the very beginning, okay, we are not according to the schedule, and then try to solve the problem together. But they didn't want to admit that there is a problem because they would consider themselves as a team that failed. But I wonder, Sophia, is it because I heard that very often that there is something that it's not that easy or convenient to share this negative feedback or have a confrontation in the Swedish culture. How do you perceive that?
Yeah, I have actually a good example of that. I have a colleague from Germany. She should provide a feedback to a Swedish guy, and she went to the Swedish guy, went into the room, and gave him really hard feedback. Just you haven't done that much wrong, but just how the German person do with the feedback on the direct way. So that's hard. From Swedish side, it's easier for Swedish people to give, from my side at least, to give feedback to abroad people from other countries than to the Swedish people, because the Swedish ones thought that they have done a very major mistake and how to handle that, and you have to kind of put it in the cloud. What you used to say, that you have to take it softly and safe and see are the person doing well and so on, and then afterwards try to follow up and see what will be the next step, and also supporting, a lot of support after that, and what can I do for you? I mean, that will push a lot of pressure on me. For instance, if I will give a negative feedback to someone else, not you have to provide a negative feedback and then I can leave. It's more of a follow up and make sure, or if I will inform the manager or whatever to that person to follow up on, just to make sure have we covered everything. So there will be more of a long process and big process, more time-consuming process. But in the end, we don't really know if everything's come through. Of course not, because it's not normal that we every time provide all the bad feedback. We just kind of try to pick up some of them, the most important one, or sometimes apparently the easiest one also, which is not the way we should be working. I agree on that, but that's how it works, and how we many times ask for feedback. It's always what's come up. We need more feedback. But then what is this feedback, and what is actually how we send negative feedback is still a question that is hard to sort out. Yes.
Yeah, very interesting. From my experience, whenever I had a presentation and my boss checked it, he pointed out, okay, this slide, there is a typo, and it was like boom, 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 a list, correct it, and it's done. Whereas in the Swedish environment, I heard more like, we need to work on this, like probably together, and probably we need a meeting for. Yeah.
Not only one meeting, probably we probably need more meetings. And okay, we do have a meeting first, and then you try to do something, and then we have follow-up meetings 4 or 5 times, or whatever. It depends on what kind of curious it's all about. Yeah.
I think also for Swedish, sometimes it's like, it makes Swedish nervous, because we are very frequently quite impatient. It's like the atmosphere of impatience, and this comes to my mind. Yeah.
And Natalia?
Yes, I would like to say that it depends on the branch, probably, and the sector, because in my occupation there is zero tolerance for mistakes, of course. And what I can say, and I think that Swedes are very good at, is the setting very good rules and routines to prevent the occurrence of mistakes. And this is something that I really respect, because this one gives me also the confidence that what I'm doing on a daily basis has been pre-checked at some point. So this helps a lot in preventing the occurring of the mistakes.
In every country, nobody wants to say, I make it wrong, I make it mistake. But differences about the Sweden and Poland. In Sweden, business is more pragmatic. It's better to say, I do it wrong, let's try to find a solution. Where in Poland, we try to cover it, we try to say half of the truth, trying to be not very pragmatic, trying to still save the situation with some kind of, half of the truth, and, or say nothing. But Sweden is more pragmatic. Okay, it happens. We have to solve it. So it's better to tell honestly, I make it wrong. Let's try to fix it. I think this is different.
And also Polish people take very frequently remarks personally. This is also a challenge, because these remarks can be, regarding business, organization, but most Polish people take it personally. So this is also should be taken into account. And, we are packed with emotions sometimes.
Yes, all right. Thank you very much for all the insights, guys. And we are getting close to the end of this meeting. I think we could go on and go on with this discussion. We barely started, and who knows, maybe we will. We will see. There is one interesting question from the chat, actually, from Tomasz Hanke. I don't know if Tomasz is still with us, but he asked about if you would like to start a business from another country, for example, in Sweden or in Norway, is it necessary to actually come to Sweden to open an office, or is it possible nowadays with the modern technology to do it remotely? Or what would be your suggestion towards that?
I can say that depends on where in Sweden you want to have, where in the Nordic country you want to have the startup. I was saying, if you say for Stockholm, for instance, there's not important thing to be in Stockholm, but if you are outside Stockholm, or it's fine, if you are in the bigger towns in Sweden, but outside then they want to have the face-to-face meeting. They want to be close connected, and so. But I also think that will be given. Once again, build on a trust if you have an address placed in Sweden for audience, or in other countries, Nordic countries, if you are on the other Nordic countries' markets.
I don't know if Mikael is with us, but I think this question was actually addressed to you regarding the presence in Sweden if you start the company from abroad.
That's correct, Jacek. And so the point is that I think that it's of course a lot easier to build relationship when you're meeting face-to-face people. You can feel them and so on. But on the other hand, I think that is less and less important, because a lot of people are working from home. A lot of people are working from all over Europe and so on. And I have made business in both Australia and New Zealand without going there. So it is actually possible to build business without going here all the time.
Okay. Okay, we need to wrap up. And thank you very much for today. It was very, very interesting. As I said before, this webinar is recorded, and it will be possible to watch it on YouTube. There will be links on our LinkedIn and our website. Thank you very much to all the speakers, all the panelists, and to all the viewers. Thank you for your comments, and follow us for more, because there probably are going to be more of these kind of content. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye bye. Hej då.
Hej då.